Hi, this request comes from one of my YouTube subscribers regarding Power Automate approvals. The scenario described is that users want to approve the approvals from a Power App or a custom application. So I have dug into the approval tables and found a way to approve the approvals without the emails. So let's start. So for this, what I did first is I did created a Power Automate approval flow. So this is a manual flow I built. Then the second step here is create an approval step. Then in the combos, I'm just collecting the body to inspect what it is returning. Then here the third step is wait for an approval that is passing the approval ID so that it can collect the outcome of that result then, and then continue your flow. Again, I'm collecting the outcome of that here. Okay, so that's basically it is here. Then I have got another flow which I built. This is where I am using the approval tables, the Dataverse approval tables. There are multiple approval tables involved in this. I'll go through one at a time later. Then what this flow does is it creates the response and it creates the the update certain status and all. Okay, so let's run this first. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to send an approval using the Power Automate. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, that's done. So it's creating the approval. So the process started. As you can see now, it's create approval here, and then I got a in the body I can see in the output I can see who it is referred to and etc. Okay, so the key thing we need to remember here is I need to take the one of the IDs here to pass on to the next flow to find all those details. Okay, so before I go into that, I will show you. I'm going to go to the advanced to find, and then I looked the approvals. So if you want to know where the advanced to find is, just click here and sorry, no, you need to go to the Power Apps and click on the settings, then you can see the advanced find there. Okay, so just go through that way then to get the advanced find. And then the approvals here. So this is the approval table. As you can see, I'm expecting one record here. There is one record approval. So I did create a custom view here, which we can see all the fields we want to see here. Here we go. So you can see here, there is a approval created, and the key thing you need to remember here is the status reason, which is pending here. See that? The status is pending. Okay, and the stage is basic and etc. here. Okay, so that's what this look like. The next thing we want to look here is, let me drag and drop to my other screen now. Okay, so at this stage my approval is running. You can see here from the run history my approval is running now. So the scenario is we want to approve this from a custom application. Okay, that's the scenario we want. And at the same time, users get an email. See, here we go. I got an email here. I'm not going to approve it here. So let's see what happens then. In the custom application, when I'm going to do that, when I'm going to run the other custom flow I built, what will happen with our email? Let's see then. Okay. So that's the email we received it. So sometimes, the users receive this email. He might be on holiday and he forgot or whatever it is. Then, there is a follow-up email. Of course, we can send it. But if it's an application, if you build a custom application for approvals, then maybe you could handle everything inside that. So that's what we are concentrating on this video. So I'm not going to approve it. For those reasons, I'm not going to approve it from my email here. Okay. So this is my second email I built. Again, for the demo purpose, I'm using, the manual trigger, and then the approval ID. So there is an approval ID we want here. So let me go back to the other flow which we just sent the create approvals. And here I need to get that approval ID actually. So that means if I go to my advanced to find, okay, and then to get the results. So you can see here the approvals here. Again, you can filter by this using whichever the way you want. So you can get some key details from here, like such as who it is target to, etc. So if I look here, this record, let me open this record. I can see the ID. It is the ID coming in the URL here. See that? That's the ID I want. So let me copy it. Let me copy the ID. Okay, so I copied that ID. I'm on my other screen now. All I did is I drag and drop to the other screen and copied that ID from the URL. Okay. And going back to here, my second flow here in the approval ID, I'm going to clear this ID, and this is the ID I want. So remember 8C1 ending with 979. So let's inspect my first flow, create approval. So in the create approval, if I look the compose statement, so in the compose is the body of that previous output. You can see here, see that there is a name here. That's the ID we want. Remember, this is a key thing we want here. Okay, not the other ID. The other ID is this. That's the approver's ID. It is. This is slightly different. Okay, so remember, we want, this is the ID we want. The name. That's the ID. Okay. Now let's inspect what else has been created behind the scene before we look this the other flow, which we are going to create custom response and custom approvals and all. Okay, so let's go back to the advanced find again. Okay, so under the approvals, that's approval table has been created. Then we have something called flow approvals. So there are few tables has been involved here. Okay, so here it always creates two records, and so let me see the so you can see here it's created again, and my ID which I mentioned the ID earlier is 8C1. That's the ID, remember. So here you can see the first is created, then waiting for approval. See that? That's the second record. So there are two records always here actually. Okay, that's the key thing. And then you can see this is a look. There's a lookup here for the approval, which is the other table which I just mentioned. This is an approval table. Okay, so that's an approval. When I click on that, that's the ID I got. Okay, so what you could do here is in the custom application, you could look for the flow approvals, and you can look for who is the owner for it, and what this is for waiting for approval. There are different ways you can filter this and put that in your custom application. It's up to your requirement it is. Okay, so the key thing here is you can see here the flow, the approvals table. It is creating two records here. One is created, one is waiting for approval. Okay, now there are a few more tables here, so we haven't finished that. So that's the other one is the approvals. We looked into it. Then we looked the approval request. Okay. So under the approval request, so let's see what we can see here. So again, see that here we can see under the approval request, see that's the ID we are looking there. That's the ID we are interested. And then again, if I go back to some more things here, let's see the owning business owner there. Again, see that approve, see that approve or reject. And then you have got active one here. Okay, this is an active record here. Okay, so that's one there. So then again, the other one is then the approval response. I'm not expecting anything here because we haven't done any approval response, approval responses. So nothing here actually. Okay, so what I did then is so we know the approval ID. So what I did is I went to the Power Automate platform, created another flow, passing this approval ID. So you could have this as an HTTP trigger as an interface, so that your custom application can call that as a parameter, passing that ID here so that you can use this. So as I mentioned earlier, and for the demo purpose, I'm just using as a hard-coded value here. Okay, right. So the first thing I'm doing then is, once I got my approval ID, I'm saying, hey, give me all my approval, give me that record ID details, because I want that. I want to do some more things with that. Okay, next step I'm doing here is I am adding a new approval response. So under the approval response, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up the lookup. So this is what happens behind the scene when the users approve through the emails. So if I click on the approve here, then users will behind the scene, that's what happening. It is creating this approval response. It sets up the lookup. So that's why lookup, This output is approval ID which I passed. Yeah, you can see here, or you can get the approval ID again from the retrieve approval. It's the same ID, so I just use the same one from the compose. Okay, so that's that. Then we need to use the model approval model ID we want. So we need to pass that coming from the previous step, this one here. Okay, so if you look here, see that approval model ID. Let me search it and show you that. So here we go, that's there. Approval model ID, that's what this is. Okay, approval model ID, that's the one we want here. Then we need to put underscore complete. Okay, I don't know what it really means. So what I did is I manually did an approval through the email. Then I found out all this. Okay, so I'm just sharing those. So underscore complete you want. Then the name, you can put any name you want. Then here we go. That's approve. So I put response as approve. Remember, in our initial send the email with the approve or reject. So whatever the response you want, you need to put that there. Yeah. So in the custom applications, when users click on a tick box or a cross mark or something, then that means it's approved or rejected. So you can pass that as a custom value here. That's what it is. Again, it is basic, and it is the status reason we need to set this as committed. Okay, and then we need still some more things we need to do here. We need the approval model ID here. That is same as this mapping ID here. Then the comment. Okay, remember we can put some comment here. When you click on approval, you can put comment here. See that? That's a comment. I'm not going to approve it. That's what that means. So that is a comment I just hard coded again. Then the stage index, I put that as basic. And then this is quite key here. Status, we need to make it inactive. Okay. So once it's created, it's, once it's done the response, the record is inactive actually. That's the reason we need to set that's inactive. That's that. So that's why we create the approval response. The next thing what we need to do here is there is a flow run sequence ID we need. Okay, I'll come back to that why we need that. So go to then the next thing, the next step is list rows of the flow approvals. So for that, what I'm doing there is I'm going to the flow approval table which I shown you earlier, and I'm filtering using this, that is underscore msdyn underscore flow approval value is equal to approval. That means we can get the relevant the record. There are two records, remember that. That's the reason it is under the apply to each. Okay, so underneath what I'm doing here is I'm updating that flow approval then, because once it's approved, what I need to do there is I need to make it inactive and make the status reason completed. So these two things we need to set it. Yeah, again the row ID, it is the ID that coming from the previous step from the list here. This flow approvals ID, it is here, this one here. Okay, that's simple as that. So once that done, we done the approval, we done the flow approval, made it complete and inactive. Remember we did the response earlier. That's the reason it is. Okay, then the next step, I'm adding a compose and say here flow notification URI. I don't think we need that. I think I just use that for something else, so you can just ignore this now at the minute. Now the set variable we want this. So why I need the set variable is I need to collect that flow sequence ID coming from this step here, this list rows flow approval. So I need to collect that flow run sequence ID there, because after that, because there are two records here and I want to collect the both IDs are same anyway, the sequence ID. I believe it is same because I haven't tested this for multiple user approvals. So you could try and see that. This is for a single one only I tried. So in my case, it is only the same ID. It is that flow run that sequence ID. Once I found the ID, finally what I'm doing is I'm going to the update approval and say the approval table. Again, it's coming from the the approvals table ID that is coming from if you look at the mapping here, it is coming from the approval of the retrieve approval. So that's this step, or you can directly use this approval ID. It's both the same. It is So basically I'm updating again the approval ID here, saying hey, that's complete now with the approval stage key. Yeah, that's another thing we want also, the approval stage key also we want. Okay, underscore complete. And then there are a couple more things here going through here. See that there are a couple more things, so I need to go through that now. Okay, so for that again Let me go back. So in the update, this one we are saying here, from um, the approval key underscore complete. That's what we want. So that's, we already got the approval ID, get details from the previous step. So from the same one that is here, see this retrieve approval here, this step. So that one here, we are mapping with the same value, whatever it is under the approval stage key. So if you look here, something like approval stage key, see that? So that's coming from the retrieve approval, that one we want underscore complete. Then we want the stage complete and the completed. Okay, these two things are also very crucial thing here. Then completed on date is UTC now expression I did. So I just use that as an expression and click update. That's what this UTC now means, is the current date and time of the system. Yeah. And then make the status as inactive. That's another thing we need to do here. Okay, so I don't think I used that variable name anywhere, is it? The flow sequence ID. I'm not sure why I did that. So just ignore the yeah, you can ignore these two steps now. Yeah, these two steps you can ignore it. It may be because I thought initially I thought it might be different then. So in my case, it's not different. So I don't need to use that set variable. So ignore the set initialize variable step. You don't need that. Also ignore the combos to enter this also. You don't need it. All you need is inside the apply to each is update the flow approvals using the flow approval ID and then make it inactive and completed. That's it. These are the two, status and the status reason. Yeah, nothing else, you don't need to do there. Then finally in the update approval again here, so this is a flow approval. Yeah, update flow approval entity. And finally under the update approval again we are making it the stage as completed. Yeah. Okay, let's run this. So remember, I haven't done anything in my email yet. Okay, so let's see what will happen with the email. And also there is still an instance of the flow is running here. So you can see it's still running 15 minutes ago. That's approval it's created earlier. Okay, so I'm going to run my the flow which I created. So remember here I am passing that approval ID here to this interface, which is currently a manual one. Like I mentioned, you can pass this from a custom application, so that you need to pass using a HTTP interface. You can pass, or the flow also got a manual passing with an ID there. So there are different ways you can build this. Okay, so once you passed, okay, looks like it's all the steps gone through it. It created the approval response. Then it updating the flow approval table and the update approval. Okay, here we go. And what will happen with our email now, with our with this one now? So that's done. That's, we manually done the approvals. So what should happen now here? When I refresh this here, it says it's cancelled because it's not approved through the flow approvals here through the system. So that's when it's been cancelled. But the benefit here is it's approved through the custom applications. And again, going back to the email, see that's the email. So I'm going to just go back again to refresh it again. So it says, hey, it's already completed. See that? So I haven't approved. I had approved through the email. I approved through my custom built flow then. So what happened here is the system, what system look is, it looks for the certain status and certain records are there. Then here it doesn't allow the user to complete it again. That's a good news here. Okay, so let's inspect the tables then. So I'm going to go through the tables again, and I'll show you what happened there then. Okay, let me go. Okay, so let's look the approval response then. So we manually created using the flow. So you can see here the approval response created. Let me go back to the approval response. So you can see, we pretty much got the full control of this because we created it. And you can see here, let me yeah, so you can see the status reason is committed, it's inactive, all that there then. Yeah, so that's that. So this is what exactly happens when we go through the email one. Okay, the next thing I found out is the approval request. So approval request, we found out it's already been created earlier. So there is nothing, we are not doing anything at all in this actually, in the approval request. Okay, see that? And one thing I found out is the status reason still it's active actually. So that's the way it's been designed. So there is no impact here. All right, okay, so that's the approval request. So it's an active, and that's done. Then, so we looked at approval response, approval request, and then approvals. So let's go to the approvals table also and see how that looked like. Okay, approvals there. Right. In the approvals also here, see that it's we set it to inactive and completed. So we got the full control of that update. So I'm setting that also to complete. Okay, that's that. Then when we look the approval steps, I found out it was nothing there, always nothing there. Yeah. I don't know whether if you got more than one approvers, I don't know the approval steps might is involved or not. I don't know. So you could check that. Then the other one is the flow approvals. Okay, that's the final one. So in the flow approvals, remember it created two records. So what I did here is I set that to complete. See, inactive and completed that record. And yeah, so that's basically it is. So we got the full control of this. And there is one more thing I need to tell you is under the flow approval, I found out an ID, a flow notification URL here. See that? So if you post this, it basically commits with anything actually, any response in the body, and it treat that as it's been completed, but it doesn't create any flow response record. So I'm not sure it's the right way to do it, and I haven't found much documentation regarding this, so I don't know really how this works. But basically, if you can push this through a HTTP action step in flow, it works. In the body, it doesn't need anything. It just, you can put anything, and it's then it changed the status to inactive and completed, but it doesn't create any anything called approved or rejected or anything. So I tried with the approved and rejected in the body and all, but it didn't do anything at all in the approved response. So I don't know how that works. So that's the reason I went and digged into the other one, like created everything manually actually using the custom flow. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see this is already been approved. So that's good news, so that this is not, when the users come back to the when they check the email and see, oh, there is something to approve, and then it's already says then like you already completed this request, because he went through the custom application and approved it. And again, the good news here is this is that's the flow which we originally created for sending the approvals, that is being cancelled. That's cancelled. And this flow, then this flow is the one which I just mentioned. So just recap it again. So find the approval ID, that's more important, of whichever the approval it is. And then from that approval ID, because it creates under the record, when we first create the approval, it creates a record in the approval table. So find that ID, then retrieve the approval details using the ID. Then using some of the info from the retrieval approval, such as like this, the approval model ID. Again, we are using it here also, using all that. Then there are custom things like name, response, basic, committed, all that. You can change whatever you want here, so committed to reviewing, saved. There are a couple of things here, you can do it. And if it's reject, you can say it's been rejected here. Type whatever the response you passed it when you create this response, So here, when you create the approval, we have the standard one, is it? Like the approve or reject. Yeah, that's the one I'm passing there actually here as approve. And then a custom comment. See that's a custom comment. Once are done, like I mentioned, ignore the initialize variable, which we don't want this. Then getting the flow approval details. But remember, this is the another one we need to use here for that, to filter that row to get the right approval. And then then there are two records there, and I'm updating the flow approvals with inactive and completed both records. That's what this means. There is nothing else going on in this loop, so you can ignore these two also. Finally, under the update approval, using again the same details of the approval details from the previous step, that is the stage key, we need to append with underscore complete. Then the stage is complete and the status reason is complete, and also completed on is UTC now, which is today's date. Then finally making the status as inactive. That's it. That's what we need to do. Okay, I forgot to mention this earlier. I think then finally, because this flow is running here, we need to cancel that. Otherwise, it's wait for another 28 days, I think. Is it 28 days? Something like that, yeah. Then in the cancel flow run, I use the cancel flow run to say, okay, then I got the flow sequence ID. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the flow sequence ID, we needed it. I've completely forgot because I didn't went through it earlier, is it? So the initialize variable I declared for outside the loop, remember, we need that for canceling that. So flow sequence ID. Then from there, I'm setting the variable called flow sequence ID for that. It's the same ID I found out, like I mentioned earlier, for the two records, because there are two records for each approvals. Yeah. Then cancel the flow run. So if in the cancel flow run, because it's outside the loop, we need to declare a variable. That's the reason I initialized a variable, setting the variable here, collecting the flow run sequence ID, then passing the flow run sequence ID here under the create approval. See that? So flow, this is my flow name, it's called create approvals. So you can see here my flow is called create approvals. Yeah, so that's where we cancel it. Of course you can cancel this, you don't need this. I'm going to delete this, you don't need that. You don't need the compose 2 here, that's guaranteed, but you still need the set variable if you want to cancel the flow run. Okay, so yeah, that's a technique you can use. So you can approve using a custom application to go through it, passing the approval ID to a HTTP interface, then run the flow to go through and create all the flow responses and flow approvals. All that status we need to change to completed and making the state to inactive and all. Hope this is useful. Thank you for watching.